It is 7 o'clock. I am calling this Germantown Board of Education meeting to order.
I can't hear anything.
Can you hear me? Check, check. Okay. I think we're good. Are there speakers on in here?
No, we don't hear. No,
Okay.
they're not on it.
I'll try and talk louder. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand if you're able.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Official meeting notification. Dr. Southland.
Yes, public notice of all meetings has been given by communication from the superintendent's office to the public, to those news media who have requested such notices, and to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Northwest Now, Express News, and West Bend Daily News. Public notice has also been posted in schools throughout the district and on the gstwi.org website, as well as cable access channel 96.
Roll call.
Please respond with a yes when your name is called. Medved?
Yes.
Barney?
Yes.
Reineman, yes. Soderberg?
Yes.
Loth?
Yes.
Ewert?
Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Okay, item 2, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda? Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Moving on to item 3, reports. Student representative reports. Welcome.
Yes. Hannah DeGrace.
Hannah, thanks for coming.
Hi. All right, so Amy Bell students are working on Courage this month. They held a Belfast 2 weeks ago that highlighted the activities students have participated in that focused on courage. Each classroom participated in discussions that talked about what courage looks like at school, at home, and in the community. April 5th through 14th was the Spring Book Fair. The 3rd grade also had a concert on April 5th. There are a couple of grade level field trips as well. The 1st and 2nd graders went to the Seussical the Musical. The 4th graders went to Shower Arts, the Milwaukee Admirals game, and enjoyed a day at the farm. County Line students continue to be superheroes by showing determination and kindness throughout the school. The school showed support for the Brew Crew by wearing Brewers gear on opening day. Kindergarten students enjoyed a field trip to LaFleur's Gymnastics, and 4th graders went to Adventure Rock to participate in fun-filled physical activities. Rockfield had the Spring Book Fair in April. The final night was a PTA paint night where over 100 canvases were sold and painted. It was the first year hosting this type of event for families, and it was a huge success. Rockfield students are taking their learning outside of the classroom yet again. Field trips into the community, theater productions, River Edge, and community service projects are a few of the field trips Rockfield students are fortunate enough to participate in. The students are writing more than ever thanks to the adoption of the Writers' Workshop curriculum and efforts of our teachers to create schedules and that support enough time for students to practice their writing skills in engaging and interactive ways. The staff and students at MacArthur are focused on building their relationships with friends and family over spring break. The 5th graders finished their G-Talks and continue to achieve their academic goals while preparing for the next part of the education in middle school. On April 1st at MacArthur, the PTA put on the first ever Sock Hop Dance, a 50s themed dance complete with a DJ and photo booth. In addition, the Scholastic Book Fair ran from April 1st through the 7th. Also, the 2nd, 4th, and 5th graders look forward to their music concerts, where they have been practicing for each and every day. At Kennedy, students have begun the 4th quarter of classes and continue to stay very busy with learning in and outside of the classroom. Track is in full swing. So far, they have competed in 2 meets and have 5 more to go. Between the 7th and 8th grades, there are 96 students participating this year. On April 13th, KMS hosted its very first talent show since the pandemic began. They had an amazing turnout and over 40 students participated. The Junior Key Club conducted a food drive this spring and was able to collect over 450 food items. Thank you to all our students, staff, and families for your participation and for helping others in need. Students are always encouraged to pursue extracurricular activities to interest and round out their middle school experiences. Germantown High School wrapped up its NHS Make-A-Wish Week, where they raised money to help their wish kid Noah with his dream of going to Philadelphia. The Germantown Faculty Music Night was held in the PAC on April 19th, where teachers from every school came together and put on a great performance. Juniors look forward to their prom that will be held on May 7th. The spring musical, Mamma Mia, is April 29th through May 1st in the PAC. Spring sports are now in session. Good luck to all the athletes in their upcoming seasons, and good luck to all students taking AP tests, which begin next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
We appreciate your updates. You're very thorough, and it's good to hear all the things that are going on. Any questions for Hannah? Okay, thank you, Hannah. Item B, MacArthur School presentation. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We have got some fifth graders from MacArthur. Just to highlight a little bit of the music programs in your elementary schools. These fifth graders have a concert coming up on May 10th. They represent things that we do at MacArthur Music, whether it's recorder playing, ukulele playing, or singing as tonight. Each grade level gets that grade level concert, and they are excited for theirs. So they have a song they want to share with you tonight that is they're working on for their concert. They are singing a song that some of you may recognize. It comes from the TV show Arthur, which some of you may know is on its last season after like 25 years. I know I grew up with Arthur when I was a kid, and so they I'm sure have watched Arthur as well since its last season. But the words of the song really speak to what it means to be a kid, what it means to be a person in our society, and so they're going to sing that song for you this evening. And so let me give them a note. Get started. You guys ready? Yeah. Okay.
Every day when you're walking down the street, everybody that you meet has an original point of view. And I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day. We can learn to work and play and get along with each other. You gotta listen to your heart, listen to the beat, listen to the rhythm of the street. Open up your eyes, open up your ears, get together and make things better by working together. It's a simple message, and it comes from the heart. Believe in yourself, for that's the place to start. And I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day, when we can learn to work and play and get along with each other. You gotta listen to your heart, listen to the beat, listen to the rhythm of the street. Open up your eyes, open up your ears, get together and make things better by working together. It's a simple message, and it comes from the heart. Believe in yourself, for that's the place to start. And I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day. Hey, what a wonderful kind of day. Hey, what a wonderful kind of day.
Very nice.
I truly believe that music is the gateway to life, and so we have community members, we have board members, we have teachers, we have school personnel who give them the key to unlock that gate. So thank you all. We thought we'd also give them an opportunity to tell them one thing that is a highlight from their either 5th grade year or other years at MacArthur in the Germantown School District. So who wants to start? Who's got a highlight? Oh, yes, Ellen.
I like the sock hop.
Sock hop, let's see, yes.
Oh, I liked in 2nd grade when we had Charlie and the Chocolate Party. The sock hop for me too. I liked when we made gingerbread houses in 3rd grade. I liked all the fun runs. I liked the sock hops. I also like I just liked it.
Wow. Absolutely, Ellen, thank you. Katie, Ellen?
I liked when we I liked when in kindergarten we had the QEU weddings when we could all just see what kind of crazy pairings we could match up.
I like from a carnival. I like the music that was there in each year at my years in MacArthur, and it was just really swell.
I didn't pay him to say that.
Nice
How about
job.
you?
I actually liked when I met my friend Aaron in 4th grade.
So yeah.
Well, thank you all
Thank you.
very much for having us here. We really appreciate it. I'm very proud of this 5th grade group. I've been honored and blessed to have such an amazing group of 5th graders in my first year at MacArthur. They are such leaders, and I'm really excited for them to move on to middle school. Like I told the middle school teachers and principals, like, got a great class coming in. So thank you guys all very much. I'm very proud of you, and keep up the good work, okay? We're not done yet. We still got to finish strong, okay?
Great job, you
All right,
guys.
great
Thank
job.
you.
Good job.
No one can top that. Very good. Good luck. All right, we're going to move on to item 3, enrollment update. Mr. Noack?
Thank you. Never been standing up here in my time. We've included an enrollment update. There was an inquiry made a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and for that reason we prepared it and felt we might as well put it in the packet. As we look at numbers, we're in a comfortable place with elementary classrooms not in any danger relative to being over consideration or anything like that. So this chart is what we use for sectioning as we move into next year, which will come up as we talk about staffing for next year. Any questions?
Only can we get 4K put on this?
Yeah, we will. Yep.
Do we have an update on enrollment for 4K yet?
We will with teaching and learning.
Okay.
Actually, this morning I met with elementary principals and we worked on our current enrollment numbers of about 126 kids. And we're determining AM or PM sections. This Friday, a communication will be sent to all parents who enrolled, and they'll have 1 week to solidify their seats, so then we can stabilize the numbers to determine FTE and staffing and working with Mr. Nowak, which may lead to reduction if parents don't get the position they wanted. We want to be cognizant of class size that are understandable and under 20 kids, and also sectioning out AM and PM sections. But as we continue to promote, we're fortunate we're going to be able to have 4K at each of our schools, so you'll be at your home school, which is a bonus. And then we're working towards promoting through a parent orientation night into the spring, so that might rise numbers over the summer as well. So we'll continue to monitor as numbers come in and we lift the program off the ground.
Very good. All right.
And as this reflects current enrollment, as we move into next year, anytime we do this, we'll include 4K as part of it.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 4, citizen comments. We have several people. Karen Wunshow.
Good evening.
Welcome.
My name is Karen Wunschel, and I am the GEA representative for tonight's meeting. On tonight's agenda, you will be discussing and approving the ESSER 3 allocations. While meeting during negotiations for the 2020-2021 contract, ESSER dollars were discussed as a one-time stipend to staff for their hard work, creative problem solving, and learning on the fly during COVID virtual and hybrid teaching. In looking at the district prepared document, ESSER 3 Part A spending options, the GEA asked the board to vote to approve option 1A as a show of appreciation for the countless hours spent in those unprecedented times doing the following: hybrid teaching, being 2 teachers at once and planning for both modes of delivery; the redesign of complete units for asynchronous learning; Communicating with parents and students was greater than any other year. In-house subbing was at an all-time high to cover for COVID and suspected COVID teacher absences due to subbing shortage. Preparing for virtual lessons was very time-consuming, and the extra time was not provided to teachers. Prepping classrooms for social distancing added many hours outside of our contracted time. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I will try to answer them if I can, or we'll bring them back to the GEA leadership to follow up. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Hepley. And Scott will allow you to talk for Melanie as well, so.
Okay, can I start with that?
Sure.
I have a prepared statement from a Germantown resident, Melanie Smythe, that I'll just read in full, and it's under 3 minutes. Currently, the Germantown planning staff is attempting to finish the development of the 2050 comprehensive plan. This document sets development and land use direction for the next 25 plus years. In a well-functioning community that is highly influenced by resident needs and desires, however, the current planning process has been delayed, is inconsistently covering needed topics and not being communicated well. I have a background in development contracts and land use. That's the person that gave this to me. I understand the village recently made a presentation about the Dodges Bay area development of the new DPW facility and a new industrial area that would be set up as a TID for infrastructure. I am recommending to the school board you receive or request reports about all TID activity current and future in the village monthly. The village is currently at an indebtedness rate of 30% of maximum allowed by the state. Approximately $46 million. The DPW will be a roughly $30 million additional loan or bond event. The new Dodges Bay TID will add to the mix, and there are currently at least one other developer looking at property in County Line Road and Lannon, or Y, for industrial, which under the current village policy will direct the village staff to set up an automatic TID for infrastructure. Beside the above, Richfield has requested Germantown extend water and sewer west to their village. The current deal offered appears to be unbalanced and not good for Germantown, with unknown monetary effects for both parties. The board is entertaining questions to provide to the village staff to explore further. At a recent village board meeting, Ehlers, the bond advisory company entity that assists with TIDs, bonds stated that if all the TIDs and DPW project came online at the same time, it could affect the Moody bond rating of the village. This is not to say this is imminent, but that all these activities should be looked at together over time. Should this happen, the borrowing capacity will be limited for village and school boards alike. Further, the developments proposed included residential, providing more customers for the schools. While this is good, we are well aware of the current limitations. We are asking for G-Town to be pickier about selecting developments that better fit the surroundings, that are in tune with the wants of current residents who will be footing the bill for all these TIDs. Not to be redundant, but if a TID is in place, those dollars are diverted away from fixing roads, other basic activities for keeping the village in repair, and tie up the school board district dollars from being used for educational purposes. I urge you to request frequent TID and development reports from the village planning department so you're informed of the entire development program for the village. I'm not against reasonable growth and am for managed planned growth that protects residents and taxpayers within our village. Thank you. And that's from the person that asked me to present. And then I just have a couple quick things tonight. So I'm really digging the DPI website. There's a lot of information. I feel DPI is stating accurate facts, and I just kind of dug in on Washington County. And what I found out, and this isn't necessarily budget related, but I guess it might feed into what I know. We're working on getting better at proficiency in math. Right now we're the second lowest in Washington County, and I know we don't want to be there, okay? I'm not going to say who is below us, but we're the second lowest, and there's 5 school districts, public, in Washington County, so you guys can do the math. That being said, we spend the second most per kid on education. So if our proficiency is lower than others and we're spending the second most, then I feel there's work that needs to be done, and I'm sure Chris and the staff here are working on that, and the school board. So it is a concern. Like I've stated before, my kids are out of the schools and had a great experience and are doing well in life, but I just feel like if our numbers are slipping, we got to take action to make the numbers come back up again, because we deserve it as a community, the parents deserve it, everybody deserves it. So the last thing I'll state is something that was brought to my attention. I guess when I'm up here speaking enough, people say, hey, did you know this was going on? So I am unsure if anyone sitting up here knows that this happened, but I'm going to throw it out there. I have it from a reliable source. I did double check the sources because we don't like conjecture up here. So it was coming to my attention through somebody that knows that the WIA asked Germantown to host a boys basketball playoff game in our new field house. I think we agree that we built this to help to use it, right? I think we agree on that. So the potential revenue was between $15,000 and $17,000 that came into us because we split the gate receipts and concessions with WIA. It was turned down by no one in this room right here. It got turned down. You guys go find out who turned it down. I think it's crazy. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Marie? Graziano? Graziano. I'll get that.
Last time you got it wrong. Okay, I would just like to say first, congratulations to everyone who won and is now new to the board. And I want to say thanks to all of you who are on the board for your service. I can only say I hope that all of you will take an interest over the schools when it comes to making sure that the teachers teach the fundamentals and not their personal beliefs. This goes for the school administrators. Principals have no say in our children. Parents have the say on their children. If schools teach indoctrination, parents will remove their children from that environment, causing Germantown schools to lose enrollment, which I don't think any of you want to happen because you're talking about making enrollment higher. I don't know what this can be done by the board, but something has to give. Hold principals, teachers, and administrators responsible to the parents and the community. Everyone should be transparent. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Larson.
Sarah Larson, Germantown. I wanted to say congratulations to Russ for joining the board and both to Mike and Brian for retaining their seats. Very much looking forward to what the new chapter will hold for the board. I want to thank you for all that you do, and I was very pleased to see the agenda item tonight about having the standing teaching and learning committee to replace the ad hoc. I think over the course of COVID, we've really seen the importance of what's happening with the academics, and I really think this is a positive step. So thanks for listening to the community. We look forward to what the committee is going to do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah, just before
Mr.
we move on. Brett, if you could, can you check into the allegation that Mr. Heffley made?
I have a note.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5, approval of the minutes. March 14th, 2022 Board of Education, March 16th, 2022 closed session, March 28th, 2022 closed session, and March 28th, 2022 closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Moving on to item 6, board reorganization. Item A, elect school board president. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to nominate Brian Medved as president.
Second.
Any discussion? I appreciate being nominated and happy to continue on as board president if so chosen. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Moving on to item B, elect school board vice president. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to nominate Amanda Reineman as vice president.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Amanda.
Thank you.
Item C, elect school board treasurer. Do I have a motion?
A motion to make Michael Loft treasurer.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Congratulations. Item D, elect school board clerk. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to make Tom Barney school board clerk.
Second.
Any discussion?
All right. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Tom.
Thank you.
Item E, appoint CISA number 1 Board of Control representative. Do I have a motion?
Amanda, that was you last year,
That
correct?
was.
Do you wish to continue
I
in that
would
role?
love to continue in that role.
I will nominate Amanda Reineman as CISA 1 Board of Control Representative.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Second. I have a second. Any discussion?
No.
Would you like it?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Congratulations again, Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Moving on to item 7, Building Committee, update from April 11, 2022 meeting. Mr. Pollock.
Thank you. Couple of things that were covered during the building committee meeting on April 11th. We did have a storm ready presentation. We had a couple of representatives present the district with basically the storm ready certificate. In effect, we went through a process to identify all of the safety areas in case of a tornado. The building review, it was a process. I'll just put it that way. So we were presented with that storm ready certificate. We're actually only one of 8 districts in the state of Wisconsin to have achieved this. So it's a good thing. And heaven forbid we ever have to actually use any of these safety areas. But the district is in pretty good shape when it comes to preparedness. There's a lot of training and that sort of thing too that went into earning this. We also got a regular update from GSF. Concerns seem to be on the decline. Compliments seem to be on the up. So that's good. And they'll continue to update us on anything that might come up. We also received a PAC update as far as some financials, but also just as a reminder, Mamma Mia is this weekend. If you don't already have tickets, tickets may still be available. And also, there is a piano fundraiser going on as well. So keep that in mind, and if you so choose, feel free to contribute to that. We got a regular update from Don as far as building updates and those sorts of things. As we continue to work through these updates, we're going to try to migrate into, rather than just focusing on what has been done, we'll certainly get those, and we can certainly ask questions about anything that has been worked on, but also more focus on what's going on now and what's being planned. So our document, our spreadsheet that he's managing to keep track of everything on his to-do list, if you will, along with monetary balances, and we'll continue to focus on budget, and we'll keep focusing on trying to take advantage where we can of cost savings along the way. Lastly, we did get an update on the Germantown High School greenhouse green space work that Leadership Germantown has partnered with us, and specifically the environmental club at the high school. We'll talk a little bit more about the greenhouse project here in a moment, but basically we've actually had quite a tremendous amount of support already from our community. Johnson's Nursery has partnered with the Environmental Club for a plant sale that's going on as part of a fundraiser. And we had a lot of questions and discussion regarding what exactly could this space look like, and kind of started to lay out phase 2, phase 3 in the future. This is a project that, as we could probably all guess, will take some time. And personally, I'm happy that Leadership Germantown has volunteered their time as part of this, and it'll actually be an ongoing project with them. So that's the update. We want to just jump right in.
If you want to give a brief overview of phase 2 and 3 and where the funds are coming from, that'd be great.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I suppose a couple of things to keep in mind. This is for lack of a better way to put it, we really want this to be a community project. The Environmental Club, for those people who may not have been kind of part of this process so far, the Environmental Club at the high school came to this board basically with this idea to try to utilize the courtyard space that currently is basically just sitting there. The doors that access this are not up to code, so it's really a space that's just sitting there, kind of wasted. And so they wanted to they had this idea to bring forward this idea for a greenhouse in which they could use it, but also a little bit more grand in the sense that make this space, which is, if I remember correctly, something like 6,800 square feet. So it's a large area. Actually be able to use it for not only the environmental club, but for art classes, for just to get outside for the kids to eat lunch, those sorts of things. And so phase one was basically laying the groundwork, starting to reach out to architects and also start to slowly fundraise for this project, get some hard numbers, or at least best guesstimates as far as the potential cost, all the different things that could go into it. We're basically at the point now where phase two of the project is to begin doing the work so that we can start to access this area safely. So phase two of the project is basically allowing the safe access via a couple of different doors, basically one particular doorway that really will give us access, but also making some adjustments to existing doors, in effect changing how the door opens and closes. That's a couple of those doors. That's basically what the change is. But there's a substantial amount of work with regards to working on the doors from the lunchroom. That's basically phase two. Phase three would include laying the concrete landings by each door, the concrete pad where the future greenhouse could be placed. I'll also mention phase four is in our information, so I'll lay that out. We're a little bit more focused on 2 and 3, but phase four would be the addition of low maintenance walking paths, low maintenance landscaping. So far, and I think this number is pretty accurate, the environmental club has already raised $70,000 towards this, and like I mentioned, they're currently ongoing right now through the 30th. They are having a plant sale via Johnson's Nursery as well, where I think the number's 15% of sales will go to this effort as well. I know Brett has been part of Leadership Germantown, as well as Amanda and others within the district. So I don't know if you want to add something from the Leadership Germantown perspective, why you guys became involved, what I know you guys are graduating here in a couple weeks. So what does the future hold, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think you did a good job of recapping everything. I think the Leadership Germantown perspective, which is different than just the school doing it, is how to involve community businesses and how to involve the community. And one of the examples we've used a couple times is that courtyard needs to be cleared of all the trees and brush that's currently in there, and that's something that has a price tag of like $35,000, but we know we can get volunteers and people who do it for a living too to come in and clear that. So it's tapping our resources right here in the Germantown community versus just paying someone to do it. And I think that's the perspective Leadership Germantown has brought. And then the other piece is that the Leadership Germantown has made it what I call a real project. Like, we have real architects and real engineers, not just like, hey, we're going to put this greenhouse up that we bought a kit for. So it's done to be effective for the next 30, 40 years. And that space is a flexible space that can be used for lots of different things down the road as well. So.
And I would just add to because obviously when you start talking about projects like this, the dollar amounts that start to get thrown out about improving the space can get large. And I think that the key piece to this is that it has been approached from a perspective of the high school club. Maybe even others will start to join in, as far as if they're the artists of the high school wanting to have their space to get inspiration, all that kind of fun stuff. The district, I know Don and I have sat in on I've at least sat in on one meeting. I'm sure he sat in on a few more. Our perspective in all this really is we're trying to be as forward-looking as possible. How far this project goes, honestly, really relies on the community effort. But our focus, Don's focus, has been when the project wraps up in the building out of this space, what are we going to be responsible for? So that's why it's, in the packet, in the information, you'll hear us talking about low maintenance, where we want to do this. This will clearly add value to the high school as far as a usable space is concerned. But we are also very mindful of the fact that there is a cost associated with now maintaining a space that they might just go out every once in a while and clear up some brush and just kind of make it so it doesn't get completely ridiculously overgrown. So we're trying to partner up and work hand to hand, and unfortunately, I'm sure at some point we might ask a question or two of what about the future. So any questions? Yes, Russ.
I have a couple. Phase 2 and 3, what is the projected cost for those?
Well, we don't have exact numbers. We're actually this Thursday, Leadership Germantown Group is meeting with C.D. Smith on that. I think the initial cost was like $20,000 for the doors, but again, in that conversation, one of the architects said, "Well, I know someone who has doors and has frames, which is a big part of it." And then like C.D. Smith is talking about having some of our kids help them do some of the labor when there's labor. So I would say at the highest end, about $25,000, but that's not where we expect to come in for it. But we're going to get more secure numbers on Thursday. And that's a great question, and some of that is why we hired these real people, the experts in the field, to give us line by line items, so then we can parcel it out and go, oh, okay, we can do this or we can do that, and that's what we're going to do specifically with the doors to start. And the concrete's the same thing. We get to that stage, our high school kids will definitely help be part of that process, and even some of the labor cost of getting the concrete from outside to inside the courtyard. Some of it can be just physical labor, or they'll pump it in. But again, we're going to look at the most efficient way, and if it's 20 kids helping, and that's the cheapest way, that's the direction we're going to recommend.
And then for the legacy costs of it, the environmental club mentioned they were willing to donate an unknown number. Do we know or had any more conversation with them on more firming that up?
Not really.
Not really. I think part of it is the pace of fundraising to actually get to the point where a greenhouse is built there. Because obviously electric and heat and all those type of things. So until we get a little bit farther along, that's when we'll start to firm up numbers. As I mentioned, so far through phase 4, the greenhouse isn't even mentioned as far as actually building that. So that's still a ways off, but ultimately the pace of fundraising, getting the volunteers, getting anybody else who might actually be doing some of the work, that's going to kind of dictate when we need to say, okay, here's what we're expecting maintenance is, and upkeep is, and the monthly bills are for things like the greenhouse.
Sure. And then how many phases do we think the whole project's going to take?
Don't really know. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's part of it's. The phases will be broken up about how much money they have at times, So I think, okay, hey, we can, but there's going to be this list of all the things that have to be done, and it's like, okay, we can lump these 4 things into phase 5, and then these 2 things. So,
sure.
Just like phase 2 is really just the doors being put in.
So
Yeah, because nothing can happen until the doors are there.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So, but the overall, I guess the strategy or plan would be to raise X amount of dollars, see how many phases we can pay for,
Yep.
approve that, and move on. So I guess my worry would be if funding fades for this project and we're left with half a courtyard, what do we do at that point?
Well, I think the plan in all of this is to go through the stages in a way that it's usable space. And whether we use it as a greenhouse project or a outdoor learning center, I mean, there's a lot of different options that we can come up with. In the conversations we've had at the building committee level, I think the goal in the board perspective is to make this budget neutral, that we're not gonna spend money on this other than community volunteers, donations, that the community is gonna support it and make it happen without it coming out of our budget, including the maintenance costs down the road. That'll be factored in as well. So that's kind of the goal in this project.
And I would say
we love the idea, but
if the doors are in and they get a concrete pad, it's a much better space than it is now. Right now, not one person can even go out there. So if the doors are in, it becomes a usable space, and a platform allows us to put tables or have a class out there. So it's already better with phase 2 and 3.
and there might be other ideas that get presented in that space that we can use it for.
Yeah, during the building committee, we've been presented with a layout of what it could look like. That's probably at some point going to be tweaked and changed and everything else.
Yep.
In theory, based off of how the phases have been laid out, at the completion of phase 3 is when, for instance, tables could be moved out there for lunch. They could have planters on that concrete slab for where the greenhouse could be. And so to Brett's point, right there, it's in many ways it's a win because of that. Now, there's still areas there that might need a little bit more development and everything else, but if they're able to raise enough funds to complete phase 3, then, I see it as a win. And in theory, even at that point, one would think that the ongoing costs would be still fairly minimal.
I think it's a wonderful initiative. I support it completely. I know during the building committee meeting that I sat in on, I think on the high end, the price tag for getting everything done was $1 million. Certainly the district can't afford that right now, and I don't think the expectation should be that the environmental club is going to foot the bill for everything. I know, turn the clock back, when I was first a board member here 11 years ago, what we don't want to do is have a group of parents and softball kids going out and painting the dugouts and the storage room over at Kennedy Middle School. That's not the expectation that we want to set. And I certainly hope that we're not going to nickel and dime the environmental club to pay the $2,000 electrical bill or whatever the bill is. I think with our budget we can afford to pay electrical. What that cost is, I don't know. But again, I think it's a wonderful project. I look forward to the completion. And we don't know what we don't know. 3 years from now, we could have a very healthy fund balance. It's growing. Our budget could be in a much better position. And the board at that time may pivot and say, we like this space. We want to do outdoor cafeteria. We want outdoor learning there. We don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now. But again, I think it's a wonderful project, and I applaud the environmental club for, gosh, when did they come to us? A year and a half ago, maybe?
It was summer, last summer.
Yeah, so
early
it's really exciting
summer.
that we're here at this time, so, thank you.
Yeah, and also closer look at the budget and where we are pretty confident we can leverage different pieces of it. It's closer to about 225,000 to do it. The $1 million was really if we paid absolutely but that's for a nice usable space. So we figure we're a third of the way there.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mike.
Mention a little. Yeah, I love the project because we've got a closed campus. So I think on good weather days, I think a lot of students might like to get out there, just to get outside. The other part is, I know we can't design this here, but I've been thinking about the concrete, and if it's going to be a pumper truck, to pump it in by hose, I'm thinking maybe we should try and do all the concrete at once if we can afford it. Just get the concrete done, because I think it might limit our cost to bringing the truck back a second or a third time, because I see there's the pad for the greenhouse, the pad for outdoor tables for the cafeteria, and a possible pad for an outdoor classroom. So if the cost isn't too bad, and I don't know what those costs are gonna be, but you know, it might be worth getting the trucks here once and pour all the concrete at once if that's at all possible. The other thing is, I don't wanna rain on the parade, but I don't know if it's been done. There's one drain out there, and I
It's
don't.
been done.
Has it been
Yep.
inspected?
Yep.
So video camera or something, are we in good shape on
Yep.
that?
That was all part of,
Okay.
part
I
of.
didn't know, so I
Yeah,
didn't.
no, yep.
I didn't rain on the
Yeah,
parade.
no, but they did drainage studies and they checked the drain, they did sun studies as well to see how much sun hits the space, so.
Okay, good. So that's all I have, if at all possible. I think it might be cost effective to get the concrete done all at once. I think our community rep on building committee might know something about that too, but we'll have to talk to him about that in the next building committee meeting.
Okay.
That's it.
So you're bringing forward a positive recommendation to approve.
Approve phase 2 and phase 3 of the green space greenhouse project at Germantown High School.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from building committee?
That would be it.
Okay. Moving on to finance committee, Mr. Loth.
Yeah, finance, we had a busy meeting 2 weeks ago. Item 8A, we approved vouchers, and by the way, it was Brian and Bob were on the finance committee for the evening. They did a really good job. Item 8B, this is how we're planning to spend ESSER dollars, and we didn't vote on this in finance. We kind of tabled it to bring it back to the full board meeting with the intent of looking into it more in these last 2 weeks. So there's 2 options on the table, and there's option 1A, which has been recommended by our GEA rep and our business manager, and then there's option 1B. So I'm just one board member, but I think we need to talk about this. It's an open meeting, right, and figure out what we're gonna do. I'm actually okay with 1A or 1B. I think both are good choices, and I think the board should come to a consensus on how we're gonna do this. Now, of course, option 1 is kind of what we were leaning towards 2 weeks ago, but 1A has been presented this evening, and 1B also is a possibility. So, 1B leaves a few more dollars left over for the board's discretion, and I don't know how that would go down the road, but these numbers are not exact either. Brittany's got some work to do depending on, the FTEs that are out there. Half-time FTEs will get half stipend. So that's the story of what's going on here. So we will end up voting on one of these options, and then Brittany will do the calculations.
Brittany, you
and
wanna come forward?
let us know.
I think we might have a couple questions.
She'll let us know in the next meeting.
Sure, so in front of you, did a good job.
Thank you.
In front of you are just 2 additional options. So the goal tonight would be to tell us or have a motion on what the stipends would be. And then I would take what those stipends would be, support staff, certified staff, whatever you decide the 2 stipends would be. And then I would go back and we'd decide, we'd figure out based on FTE, because we really just took what's the budget today, and then we broke it out by the staff we have, and then we set it by 1,000 and 750, and then 500 and 750 were the 2 options. Doesn't mean those are the options that the board has to go with. Those are just the 2 options we came up to give estimated dollar amounts. So once we actually break it out to the actual FTE, I would come back next month and say, this is what it actually came up to, and this is what we have remaining, and then we'd have another discussion on what we would spend the remaining dollars on. So today I would just need to know what the stipends would be if we could do a motion on that.
Okay. Question on that. This is ESSER 3. We have ESSER 1, 2, and 3. Do we have any funds left from ESSER 1 and 2 that are at our discretion, or are they all spent already?
Sure, ESSER 1 is completely spent. It was about $75,000. ESSER 2, we're still working on what we can spend those dollars on. We'll submit we have a budget. We submit certain reimbursements, and then the state will tell us if they qualify or not. So we're still working on those, and we can go back to 2020 when COVID started. So we're working on those. And then we also possibly have ESSER 3 Part B, which they have not given us any information on. So in the future, we have until 2025 to spend ESSER 1, 2, and 3. So we could bring remaining dollars back to the board.
Right.
And 20% of, ESSER 3 has to be set aside for
Loss of learning.
Loss of learning.
Right, and that's already taken
That's already
out.
taken out.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the remaining is the 531,000 approximately.
And to clarify the other piece of this, the mental health, we received a grant for money for that as well, separate from this?
Correct.
Do we have a dollar amount on that?
It's about $61,000 is what we've allocated.
Just to put all the numbers on the table so we know what we're talking about.
Correct.
Okay. Any discussion?
I'm just looking at this item, option 1A is compensation only, allowing 55,000 left for board discretion.
Approximately.
Yeah. I see for option 1, kind of the survey that was taken, and over 43% requested it be used on instruction, 23 on mental health, 18 on compensation, and 14 on mitigation. So where are we jumping the line on compensation regarding our community's input?
Sure. So I explained at the Finance Committee how the input was broken out, and this is raw data. So I just wanted to repeat again that some of the submissions were for multiple categories, which we broke out in multiple categories, and some of the submissions were for groups. So we're taking the feedback of some of the groups and we're breaking it out because we believe if some of those groups would have actually had individual responses, your percentage would have changed drastically. But
Sure.
the raw data is stating the top one, and I just had to give that raw data because that's what we got feedback. So if the state of Wisconsin asked us,
in regards to compensation with the 22 responses, one of those is the GEA encompassing all of what their responses would have been?
Correct.
Okay.
So going back to mitigation, we had ESSER 1 and ESSER 2. Can we do those projects and then submit those for ESSER 1 and 2 as well?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we're working on that.
Okay, so that was a part of it I wanted to get clarified. Anyone else?
I know at the finance meeting, there was discussion about using that $61,000-ish grant and supplanting some of that money from this in option 1 to compensation. Was the math ever done on that to see what the compensation package would look like stipend-wise?
If you move.
If we move that.
Remaining.
We take the, 127 minus the 61. And add that into the compensation. Do we know what those numbers look like?
Are you talking about the mental health grant?
Correct.
So if you took the 127 and you minus 61,000, what would we have left? And you'd add that to compensation?
Yeah.
That was not done.
I'm just wondering what that would have left us for the compensation side of it. It sounds like from the GA's comments earlier, these funds were already mentioned in some sort of negotiation.
Correct. Yeah, last year in negotiation with the GEA, we made a commitment that ESSER dollars, because we were able to do it, and because of the pandemic and the issues that were stated earlier with the teachers, they had to step up during the pandemic, and we promised them that we would do what we could to compensate them with ESSER dollars in any way that we could.
At the time, we
had
no idea what
was.
any of these numbers would be. So there wasn't a specific discussion about X dollar amount, Y dollar amount, anything like that.
So,
Brian, I was leaning towards option 1B. Reason being is we certainly want to recognize what staff did during the pandemic. It was interesting times back then. But also, I wanted to get some dollars in there for mental health, because we know the impact that the pandemic had on the psyche of our kids, of staff, and we need to do something, we need to do a better job in mental health. Saying that, if we've got a grant for $61,000, I think that's a good start to going down the path of improving what we can in mental health. And right now I would support option 1A totally, because we're coming into our new budget is going to be very challenging for us. And I think we need to do all we can to create opportunities to recognize people today, even though this is for what happened during the pandemic. I think it would be very good for us to do that. So I support option 1A.
I agree with you, Bob. I'm more leaning towards option 1A, knowing that we have that grant for mental health, because as we all know, that is something crucial for our staff and our students, most definitely. So, and by all means, they're being rewarded for something, 2 years ago now, so.
I tend to agree with those comments as well. Knowing what we know about the ESSER dollars and the ESSER $2 that are still unspent, and possibly 3B that could be coming, I think this is a good option, and it does recognize our teachers for time served during a very difficult time, and I would appreciate it if the board went that direction.
Not just the teachers, it's
No, and
everybody,
staff.
it's
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was all
Everybody
hands
did a lot
on
of-
deck. Agreed.
I mean,
Absolutely
we were
agreed.
throwing curveballs, knuckleballs, and it was very challenging back then.
Absolutely.
And everybody was jumping in to help wherever they could.
Yep. I think we made it through quite successfully with a lot of hard work from a lot of people, obviously. So,
Well,
much
the,
appreciated.
the fact of the matter was, is while many districts made their choice to stay virtual, our teachers went in, and many of them had to work with kids who were in the classroom and kids who were at home. That wasn't the original plan, but there were some teachers who basically said, I'm going to do this because I had these kids virtually, we went back, and now I have that relationship with them, but they're still going to be virtual. And so they had several of them had to juggle a lot. So I'm all for 1A.
Any further discussion?
No, thanks for catching me up
Well-
on that. Obviously, I'm playing in the dark on some of this, so understanding the negotiation side of it, and obviously, I think the teachers worked their tails off for us during the pandemic, so.
This didn't come to the board with a positive recommendation, so we need a
Yep,
motion.
I'll entertain a motion.
And a second. So,
Did you want to take a shot, or you want me to?
you can
Okay.
go ahead.
I make a motion to approve option 1A compensation on the ESSER 3 Part A spending options.
I'll second.
Can you just do me a favor and
Say the
say,
amount?
yes, please.
Okay, the funding categories would be $750 stipend for support staff and $1,000 stipend for certified staff,
Based on FTE.
based on FTE.
And the board discretion money will still be up to board discretion.
It will come back in
Perfect.
May.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Tom?
I have a family member who's considered support staff, so it may be a conflict of interest if I vote on this, so I will be abstaining. It's another reason why I didn't participate in discussion, although I do appreciate all the extra work that our staff may have done throughout the years of COVID.
Very good.
Hey, one more question. What's the definition of support staff and certified staff?
Sure. Certified staff is administration and teaching staff as they are licensed. Thank you.
Okay. Support staff is?
Sure. Clerical, food and nutrition, maintenance, custodial.
Secretary.
Secretaries.
Special ed aides.
Special ed aides.
Special ed aides. Instructional aides.
Very good. Thank you.
I do want to take this opportunity to recognize my colleagues on the board, this board, but also Ray Borden, who transitioned off of the board during the pandemic, because we are firm believers in local control, and we were thought leaders in our community in Washington County by being one of the first districts to pivot to in-person, to getting rid of masks and all the other things that we did. And also Brett, I mean, your staff did a wonderful job in gathering all this information. So I want to recognize the board for doing that. because we could still be in masks like other school districts in the state of Wisconsin are today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
And I abstain.
And abstain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item. Not as complicated as as item B. So item 8C, this is for annual technology leases. And this is our annual Chromebook purchases in accordance with the precedent set last year. Germantown sought out dollar buyout financing for Chromebooks instead of fair market value leasing to avoid future damages, costs, and provide flexibility in device usage. This year in our cycle, our K4 grades Chromebooks also being refreshed, as well as the typical 5th through 9th grade replacements. So, motion to approve with a positive recommendation from the Finance Committee to lease purchase Chromebooks and PC hardware in an amount not to exceed $353,856 and finance the lease purchase through a 4-year lease arrangement with American Capital as presented, and charge the appropriate capitalization and lease accounts in the general fund.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Okay, item 8D. This is a 4-year kindergarten program, and it's for furniture. The motion to approve with positive recommendation from the Finance Committee to award Lakeshore Learning Materials a contract not to exceed $73,000 to purchase the district's 4-year-old kindergarten program furniture, which will be funded by the 4-year-old kindergarten startup grant.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Okay, next item is Kennedy Middle School cafeteria tables. Motion to approve with a positive recommendation from Finance Committee to award Henriksen the bid not to exceed $54,372 plus shipping to purchase cafeteria tables for Kennedy Middle School out of Food and Nutrition Budget Fund 50.
Okay, any discussion?
I have one thing I want to mention. I was very impressed when Brittany mentioned she knew more about torsion bars to try and fix the old tables than she wanted to know about. So I kind of felt like maybe our business manager shouldn't be dealing with torsion bars, and these new tables are a good idea. But thank you for looking into it anyway. Parts were difficult to find to repair these. My understanding is the tables are just wore out and difficult to handle. So I believe the new tables are lighter and, well, they're new, so they won't have pieces that need to be replaced.
Very good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Okay, next item. It's a food and nutrition oven. Motion to approve with a positive recommendation from the Finance Committee to award Bolter LLC the bid not to exceed $28,448.24 to purchase a combi oven out of the Food and Nutrition Budget Fund 50.
Okay, any discussion?
I didn't read the whole thing, but my understanding is one oven, they've got 2 ovens now, one doesn't work, and the other one only works for certain things, so it half works. So that's the reason for this purchase of a new oven.
Okay.
And I guess this is an important night because the price was only valid until April 30th, so I guess it's got to be ordered quickly. That's it.
Any further discussion?
Can you explain where the dollars are coming from? I know it's Fund 50, Food and Nutrition, but in reality, it's a separate bucket.
I believe the Fund 50
Sure.
does have dollars in it.
Yep, Fund 50 Food and Nutrition budget is self-sustaining program. So the general fund does not cover any of those. We did get an increased revenue from the federal government through Fund 50 due to COVID. All districts did. So we're using those one-time dollars instead of adding them to Fund 50 fund balance to purchase some items that they need.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, we can't take Fund $50 and run those into the general fund?
No.
Okay,
Separate bucket.
correct. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Okay, item 8G. It's the TIF properties, or I think Germantown usually calls them TID. I don't recall if everybody was here for the Finance Committee meeting. I see Steve Krecklau is here, so Steve, maybe you want to come forward and help out a little bit with this?
Sure. Sure, I'd be happy to. I'm Steve Krecklau, the village administrator for Germantown. The village board is looking into the possibility of forming a new tax increment district. It's actually would be a relatively small one in the vicinity of Donges Bay and Wazaki Road. This is a little bit different situation than some of the recent tax increment districts that the village has formed. It's related to the construction of a new public works facility. We have actually purchase agreements signed with 2 properties that are for sale on the south side of Donges Bay, the one immediately on the corner and then the one adjacent to that. We're looking at locating the new public works facility on the parcel that's on the west of those 2. And then the second one, creating a tax increment district. I have a little diagram here. The shaded area would be a small tax increment district that we would seek to develop, and we're in negotiations with a development partner at this time. And the purpose we're doing that is really to split the cost of some infrastructure that is necessary for the public works facility. So in other words, instead of borrowing for that using general obligation borrowing and then levying taxes to pay for about $4.5 million in infrastructure improvements that would be necessary, we would form the tax increment district. The district would pay for half of those $4.5 million in infrastructure investments, and the village would pay for the other half. And then as part of that, there would be a development with a total of at full build out about 600,000 square feet of commercial and industrial space. Just a little bit to add on top of that, some context or the village's financial information. We do have 3 active tax increment districts. They're all doing very well. Actually, all 3 are projected right now to close in advance of their original plan dates, which means that when that happens, they go back on the original tax base, and the taxpayers see the benefit of that growth at that time. In addition, we just went through our bond rating process, and Moody's rating agency just reaffirmed the village's AA2 rating, which is actually just about a step and a half below the top level that they're able to provide, and gave us a very strong write-up of strong financial management. So the village is very healthy financially, in a strong financial position. So I hope I explained the TID well enough, and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So are we going still by TID versus TIF? Or?
Well, TID is tax increment district. TIF is tax increment financing. So actually, the way you had it on the agenda was correct. It's a tax increment financing district.
Okay.
But either way, I know what people mean. Either way is fine.
We've got the board material has the same shaded gray map that you just kind of showed us, and it looks like it's about square. So what's the acreage on this that you're showing us?
It's about it's a little over 40 acres. There's some small wet areas in there. I believe it's 37 developable acres.
Okay, and then the part that's going to be the village is next to it, to the
Yep.
west of it?
The more rectangular shape, although the corner is cut off, parcel next to it is where the DPW facility would be located. It's a slightly smaller space and there's more wet area. So that'll be the space that the village will be utilizing. And actually, one of the questions that came up at the finance committee meeting was, what are the annual taxes? The parcel that the DPW facility is currently paying $2,300 a year in property taxes. The other parcel is about $3,000 a year. So, and just for background for people who might be listening, the way a tax increment district works is that the baseline property taxes from the tax increment district will still continue to be divided up among the taxing jurisdictions. The increment from the new development that goes onto that parcel will go to pay the debt service that was necessary for the development. And then when the debt service is all paid off, then that goes onto the tax base. They pay the full amount the entire time. It's just until the debt is paid off, it's dedicated. The increment is dedicated to pay off the debt service.
What's the term on that, do you know?
This will be one of our longer TIDs. It's projected to go out about 20 years. The other three tax increment districts we have, I think what the village board generally tries to do is to accelerate it and make that term as short as possible. The tax increment district 8, for example, current projections, and that's out Gateway Crossing where all the new big buildings are going in. That could close out as early as 2030, and then all of that value will go back on the property tax base.
Do you have the dollar amount difference between current tax base and what it would be in 20 years?
Yes. I don't, well, actually, it is, I'm going to have to get my reading glasses out to be able to see some of these small numbers, but when it's fully built out, the estimated value, and this is not adjusted for inflation, be $25.8 million. And that would generate in property taxes about between $450,000 and $500,000 a year. So then at the end, when it closes out, all of that money will then be distributed among the taxing jurisdictions.
Okay.
And right now, the property that you're gonna be taking off the tax rolls, I think you mentioned was $3,000.
Yeah.
You probably get about 2,000 of that to school district, year over year. I
Right.
presume.
That sounds about right, yeah.
You're gonna cut us a check, right? I'm joking. I'm joking. Question for you though, the TIF on, and I don't know what number it is on Holy Hill Road.
That's 8.
Okay, 8. Like when, in the news, it was, Briggs and Stratton, they're gonna go out. But that doesn't stop any of the revenue coming in to support the TIF because the building owner is paying the property, correct?
Correct. Correct. The owner of the building continues to pay the property taxes based upon the value of the property, and actually in that case, Briggs never owned that building. They leased it originally from Zilber, who was the construction company. And just to show you the way the market is for these buildings at this point, Zilber built it at a cost of $24 million. It was assessed, it's assessed at $34 million. And last summer, Zilber sold it to another industrial property management firm for $43 million. So it's just those values are going through the roof, which is part of the reason why the districts are doing pretty well.
That's right.
When you got your latest Moody's rating, was there any guidance along with that to tell you how if another TID might impact that rating in the future?
They spend a lot of times, the way the process works, there's we put together along with Ehlers a financial pro forma packet of information that gets distributed not only to the rating agency but then prospective bond buyers. And they spend a lot of time looking at tax increment districts. they spend most of their time looking on the cash flow of individual districts. So they ask a lot of questions about what development is going in, the types of development agreements that the village negotiates to make sure that, as Director Soderberg mentioned, that there's guarantees in there that, and all of them, all of our tax increment districts we have right now do include guarantees of construction timelines. So before we, the village board approves one or recommends approval to the joint review board, we'll have development agreements in place that guarantee by a certain date there will be a certain value of construction, or the developer is going to be responsible for making up the difference, so that the village, and if that didn't happen, the village would be responsible for making up the difference in the debt service. So that's really what the rating agencies focus on. I will say that when they talked about the positives going on, and rating agencies are not residents or neighbors of potential developments, but rating agencies like to see new growth. And even if that is part of a tax increment district, they'd like to see that new growth coming in, and sewer connections, water connections, and all the property value that goes along with it.
And I know when you presented at the Finance Committee last week, I believe it was?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, I think I mentioned about, because there's so many TIFs out there that I just needed increased awareness. And I think you mentioned that you're going to try to get some awareness on your website so that the community knows exactly what the TIF is and where we're at with that.
Right, yes. We'll try to do a better job of publicizing. There's an annual report that's required by the state of Wisconsin for each tax increment district, and our financial advisor prepares that. We have to submit it. It's reviewed by the State Department of Revenue, and we actually do have an annual meeting of the Joint Review Board where it's presented. Surprisingly, there's not big crowds and lots of people paying attention when that stuff comes forward, but there's a lot of good information and a lot of good news for Germantown right now with the way those tax increment districts are doing. So we will try to get that out a little bit more and let people know that they're looking like they're a real positive financial impact, not only on the village, but eventually on the other taxing jurisdictions as well.
I have one, possibly two questions. One, is it an accurate statement that every time TIF or TID is done that our taxes go up?
No.
It's not?
Correct. So again, and I'll use this map as an example. So when there's a baseline that's calculated. So when the tax increment district is formed, the property value and the property taxes from each piece of property within the tax increment district, there's a baseline established. So what is this property currently paying in property taxes? So right now, it's about $3,000 a year for that property. That $3,000 per year continues to be distributed to the taxing jurisdictions as it is. So there's no negative impact on any of the taxing jurisdictions. What the taxing jurisdictions don't get immediately is the additional increment of property taxes from the growth that takes place on that parcel.
So we would wait the 20 years to reap the benefits.
You wait the 20 years to reap the benefits. So now you can make the argument that if the tax increment district wasn't necessary and the development would have taken place without that, then you could make an argument that it was unnecessarily taken away from the other taxing jurisdictions. But that is something that that's a legitimate question for the school district. I think as part of the Joint Review Board, it's something the village board asks, but it is one of the criteria that we're supposed to be evaluating, the but-for clause. Would this development take place but for the tax increment district? And if the answer to that is no, then it's tax increment district eligible. If the answer to that is yes, it would have happened anyways, we really shouldn't be using tax increment district for it.
Right. The thing that I just keep thinking about is we have all these new subdivisions coming in around, right? And then obviously that's a big chunk of money that we would get in 20 years, but we need that money now to help with our schools. So
I understand, and that is one of the reasons why I think the village board and I personally as a government finance administrator take this position, we should try to get these closed as quickly as possible. So, again, for example, with the Holy Hill Gateway Crossing tax increment district, it was the borders were drawn as small as we could make them, and then we worked. And a lot of it was market conditions were very positive at the time, but we worked with developers to try to get it developed as quickly as possible. And what was initially projected to take, anywhere from 10 to 15 years to get fully developed is we've got, I think, 2 sites left that are not under construction or completed construction right now. So that'll get back on the tax rolls much more quickly. So it is. We try to do it as quickly as we can. This one is going to be a little bit longer, and it's kind of unique because we're sharing the cost with the DPW facility. But otherwise, I think the goal should be for the village, in responsibility to all the other taxing jurisdictions, to get them closed as fast as we can.
I have a follow-up question, and thank you for bringing that up. I think at the last Finance Committee meeting when you presented, we talked about a whole bunch of things. We had some fun, getting, Topgolf in Germantown, doing something more on entertainment. But the development the proposed development that I think was a lot of community input on it with the apartments and so forth. I know on this TIF, you're getting what you need, the village needs for infrastructure, for roads, for curbs, for water. But there's nothing in there for the school district. And I think I asked Brett what impact that development would have on the school district. More than likely, we would have to go to referendum because we can't absorb that in our current footprint of the schools. And we don't have money for that. And the school district, I don't think the community has appetite to go out for another referendum. So I'm just going to plant the seed that in future developments like this, that I think the village needs to start thinking the impact this has on the school district. There's a reason why they want to come into Germantown, because we have beautiful schools, beautiful infrastructure, we're doing very well. But be careful what you ask for. When that happens, the impact potentially on the school district could be catastrophic because we don't have the dollars to build a new school. And the community does not have appetite to pay for a new school. So as part of developments, I know in other states, they say, okay, if you want to put a big development in like that, you put a school in too. I just want to plant the seed with that.
I do appreciate that feedback. There is, and actually there's a plan commission meeting tonight where the plan commission is doing a consultation with the developers looking at a residential development on County Line and Landon Road that would be about 320 apartment units. And I know that is one of the questions is what is the impact on the schools. I can say that we get calls frequently from residential developers who are looking to locate in Germantown, and that is good feedback to have. I will say specifically on the County Line and Landon, and if that continues to move forward, I'll be back again at some point in another month or two. But we have asked, as we're doing the analysis on the tax increment district, to look at an option where the residential development is excluded from the tax increment district, so that would go directly onto the tax base, and see if that's an option that would work out financially. It would mean that then the TID would be in place longer, but with residential development in particular, the village doesn't typically go forward with tax increment district funding for residential development. This would be the first time, certainly since I've been there, since I've been with the village, and it might be the first time ever, as far as I know. And the impacts on the schools are certainly something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's probably stats out there to say if it's an apartment complex, how many children and what age they would be. But if it's 300 apartments, that could be 300 kids. That's a whole school full of kids in one apartment complex area. Right. You know, that would be, as Bob said, catastrophic to the school district to try to absorb that many in one small area.
Well, and it is something that I think it's important important we continue to communicate on some of the long-term plans. I know that we've had some conversations about it. I know the superintendent and I have talked about, potentially another joint meeting coming up this summer, and maybe one of the topics, another update on the 2050 planning process. But there are a lot of residential developers who are looking. You see how fast the houses that are being built right now are selling, and the prices are going for. Like you said, Germantown is a very attractive place to be, and there are property owners who are looking to develop their land and for residential development, and most of those would not involve any tax increment district funding. Those would be privately funded and developed if they come forward and they're approved. So I do expect that the population is probably going to grow over the next few years.
Did you say that at the planning commission tonight, the proposed 300 unit on County Line, that's going to be a TID? That's being reviewed as a potential TID. It initially came forward as entirely commercial and manufacturing. There was some discussion about adding some residential to kind of provide a buffer between the commercial and industrial component of it and some of the surrounding neighborhoods. But it is one of the considerations is a tax increment district for that. Yeah, because I know and I don't know what my TID number by Walmart, whatever TID that is. This board the previous board took action that no residential would be included in that TID.
Right, and that's actually
because
TID 6.
We don't get the money coming in.
Right.
20 years.
The Willow Creek Business Park is entirely commercial and industrial. That's TID number 6, and that is another one that's projected to close out early.
Thank you.
Sure.
Steve, what is going to happen with the old village garage?
As part of the project plan that we're bringing forward, the old village hall would be demolished, and three of the existing garages would be taken down. There are 2 that are worth saving, and that's about as far as we've gone in the planning process. We do have another need that we're starting to look at for a police department. Our police building is reaching the end of its useful life, and we haven't decided if we would renovate or rebuild, but if we do rebuild, one potential site would be where the old village hall was located.
And I know we're not here to engineer what the village is doing, but what about the salt dome? I know a guy that plows and salts roads here in the wintertime, and he says that if the salt dome moves, it's an awful long drive between the southeast end to the northwest end of the village. So what about the salt dome?
We are planning to keep the salt dome in operation, and there would be an additional salt shed constructed at the new DPW facility, but we would keep the existing location for exactly the reason you're talking about. Plus, we have to, the way the contracts work for the street salt that we use, we own it, but we have to pay for storage if we don't have room for it. So the more storage space we have, the less we have to pay in those costs.
Okay, good. Part of the reason why I ask is if all those trucks are running on Donges Bay, for example, we were criticized for putting in 16 homes in the Kinderberg Estates, and now the village itself is looking at running, salt trucks and plows, possibly on Donges Bay to the entire village. So I think it's a good idea to keep the salt dome where it is.
Yeah, we like to try to reduce the amount of time that that trucks are taking to come back in and reload. Actually, what our streets and highway superintendent is saying that this site might actually reduce some of the travel time because the bulk of the roads are down in the southern and eastern portion of the village. So overall, it might reduce some drive time, but having that dome up on the northwestern portion of the village would help cut out travel time for some of the more distance roads that we have to take care of.
One more comment, then I'll shut up. I apologize for harping on this, but I'm very concerned with the proposed 300-unit development on County Line, especially when you reference it could potentially be a TID, and the Plan Commission could possibly entertain that. But wasn't the development proposed not a TID?
No, the development that came in did come in with a request for a tax increment district.
Okay.
And I would say that's, the village board is very much concerned with the very question that you brought up about the impact on the schools, and that's something that we're taking a look at, and looking at ways that, again, if the village board does decide to move into the next steps with the tax increment district, that's looked at, and that there's ways to address that issue.
Why would we even entertain that, quite frankly? It doesn't make sense, and one board member would never vote on that, to accept the TID for that development. And I know my colleagues here, I mean, we've got a perfect opportunity to say, who would vote on something like that with 300 units?
I certainly wouldn't, and the question is, has it been approved already?
No.
Or
No.
I mean, so I think we have a whole group of parents here that needs to head to the village hall and say, no, we don't need a 300-unit apartment complex in Germantown. It's just, it's insanity. And we know that our police department in particular may spend a lot of time there. It's just the way it is.
Well, I will say I left Village Hall with a full village boardroom there, so there were plenty of residents who were there to comment on it. And, and at this point, it's, sometimes people, I think, maybe misunderstand the way the process works. It's not necessarily the village staff or village trustees going out and trying to solicit development and, hey, can you come on in? We want to hear more about this type of development or that development. It's really, we're in a situation where, we have a lot of, I think especially farmers who are kind of getting to the point where that's their retirement. They want to sell their land, develop their land, and they're and as I've learned more about the farm industry, they tend to have a pretty good idea of what their land is worth and what they can sell it for, and they're trying, as private property owners, trying to maximize what they can do with their property. And the village has a responsibility when that comes in to kind of go through the due diligence and listen to what those proposals are. If there are requests for tax increment districts, we need to know, would they work, would the numbers add up, or and then there's public hearings and opportunities for the residents to come in and speak their opinions. But we have a responsibility as staff, and the trustees have a responsibility to listen and to hear what those proposals are.
And I would just say we have responsibility for our constituents in the district, for the moms and dads and also the kids, and that size development without any additional revenue coming in, it's a new school for us. Yeah. And I don't think the school district residents would appreciate this board authorizing a referendum to pay for $15 million, $20 million school.
At least 20.
At least, minimum. We don't have the money for that, and I know there's not appetite for that in the community today. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so this did not come to the board with a positive recommendation. We need to decide what we're going to do, and the joint review board meeting is on May 9th.
May 9th.
May 9th, right? We need a motion to send Brittany Altendorf to represent the district, or whoever we decide to deliver the yay or nay vote on this particular TIF for the new facility. So
I'll make a motion to approve the tax interrelevant district as presented to number 9.
Second.
Further discussion?
Is that what we're on, number 9?
Number 9.
I don't.
At least I hope it is.
I'm not. Oh, okay, it is in here. All right, very good. Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
That passes.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You're
Steve.
welcome. Thanks, Steve. And that's it for finance.
Okay. Moving on to item 9, Policy Committee. Amanda Ryman.
Thank you. Quick update from our policy committee that happened on April 20th. For more information, please go ahead and take a look at that as it was recorded. We discussed 31 policies and added policy 5900 to the discussion at the meeting. Because that policy was added at the meeting, we needed Neola and legal to do some clarification, and Mr. Stousen will talk on that. But before that, I just want to say that we are coming to the board with the recommendation for all changes to the 31 policies that were presented, but we need to open it up for discussion for policy 5900. Do you want to touch on that real quick?
Sure. So policy 5900 is the transgender student policy, and we had several questions about that, and we checked with legal and also with Neola, which is the national company that we work with for all school policies. Legal just said because this current policy is in 2 different lawsuits, one in Madison, one with the Kettle Moraine School District, they are recommending we don't do anything. This is legal's recommending we just don't do anything with it until those cases play out in the Supreme Court. Legal also said that, and I'm just quoting what was written here, applicable laws do strongly suggest that the rights of parents to make healthcare decisions on their child's behalf and to be notified of their child's gender identity decisions generally outweigh any right to privacy which a student may arguably have. On the other hand, the district's current policy offers a degree of flexibility which permits the district to assess the situation and needs of the student on a case-by-case basis. Neola said this is not a Neola policy. So Neola considers this policy, and I'm not exactly sure when this board adopted it or approved it. I'm sure it's probably in the last 4 years. They say this is a homegrown policy, which can get districts in trouble. Neola is saying the policy is unnecessary. In fact, they don't recommend having this policy since we already have more than a dozen anti-discrimination, anti-harassment policies that cover transgender as well as all other protected classes. So those were the two statements.
The discussion then would be one of 3 options, I guess, right? Yep. What legal said, don't touch it, wait to see what happens. Number 2, removing it completely, as it's a man, or just something that we came up with to help fill. Or the third option would be, there is a paragraph at the end that says, when reasonable under the circumstances, the district will seek to include a student's parents or guardians in discussion with the student that relate to the student's transgender status. As a general practice, district personnel should speak with the student to obtain the student's consent prior to discussing the student's transgender status with the student's parents and guardians. We would basically take a lot of that out, and instead of a paragraph, it would state, the district will seek to include the student's parents or guardians in discussions with the student that relate to the student's transgender status. So that's option 3.
Yeah, I'll just comment that I'm familiar with this policy. A previous board talked about this in detail, and legal counsel at that time recommended to protect the district, we create our own policy. I didn't know about Neola, so thank you for sharing that. I do appreciate that. But I do, from my understanding, we are at risk by keeping the language in here the way it is. I would have no problem, based on current legal counsel advice on striking the policy, as long as there is a policy, as long as there is verbiage in one of our policies that reflect parental rights in terms of anything and everything that happens with their kid in our school district, that the moms, the dads, and the guardians are fully aware of it. And I don't know if we have policy that says that.
I can find out.
So do you want to take 5900 off at
No,
this point?
I think I would feel comfortable with the board taking action on 5900 with the language that you proposed.
Okay.
That keeps the policy in place and also allows for parental rights. Mm-hmm. And mitigates our risk based on what we know that's happening in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I would look for it to remove seeks and put in will or shall.
Yeah.
It says will, the district will, so I
Sure.
can just, like you said, remove seek. Well. Okay.
Yeah, my option is, option 3 also. You know, the district will inform the parents, you know, and the word seeks being out of there is fine. It sounds a little bit legal ease to me, which I don't really care for.
Okay.
All right, do we want to start on 5,900? I'll entertain a motion on 5,900 alone. Do you want to make yours a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve or to modify policy 5900 with the proposed language that my colleague Amanda stated.
A second.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. So then we want to do policy 100 through 8450.
Yep, the 31 policies that we discussed. So I'll make a motion to approve the 31 policies that we discussed, from 100 through 8450 as presented.
I'll second.
Were there any changes to the policies that we made?
The policies that came forward to us, it was clarification on definitions, pretty legal information was updated.
Some new Wisconsin state statutes that had to
Statutes were
be
updated.
inserted.
And then a lot of, oh, thank you, gender neutral information was changed. He, she is now student or board member.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Anything else from personnel?
That was policy.
Oh, on policy.
Nothing else from policy, thank you very much.
Okay, number 10, now we're going to move on to personnel. Mr. Barney.
Yes, Personnel Committee met last week. The only thing we discussed were the two motions that we're bringing forward, so I'll skip the update portion and go right to the items. 10B was the employee handbook changes. So what the committee's bringing forward is a recommendation, positive recommendation to add the following to the support staff section of the staff handbook under the subsection of vacation. It is vacation shall be taken under a current fiscal year basis and shall not accumulate from year to year. Any vacation not taken on a current fiscal year basis shall be waived unless approved at the sole discretion of the district administrator. If an employee is approved to carry forward vacation from a prior fiscal period, this carryover must be used by the following September 1st or be forfeited.
Okay, any discussion? Mike?
Is it different in the public sector? Because in the private sector, there's no carrying over vacation with any special permission or not. You just can't do it. It's Wisconsin state law, as far as I know. You know, you could work a deal with your boss under the table maybe, but that's not how it works. There's no carryover. Very few states allow it. A few do, but most do not. So I'm not sure that this goes with Wisconsin state law.
Not sure it's state law. I don't know the state law.
Yeah, it's state law.
And
California,
I thought it was
for
a company
example,
that-
allows 1 year of vacation to be carried over.
Well, it's not
But
true in
after
government, I know
that,
that.
if you still don't take it, you lose it there also. But Wisconsin doesn't have that carryover legislation.
Okay.
I haven't lost much vacation over the years, but I have lost a little bit because of it.
Yeah, I can't comment this as if it's different for private versus public.
Yeah.
But this is already in the staff handbook for administrative and professional technical
So
staff.
it sounds to me like you can carry it over as long as it's used by September 1st of the next year, is that?
No, September 1st of that, still that year, because it's a 2-month window.
Okay, and is that?
And because we prefer to people to use it in the summer.
So is the end
versus
of
the
year June?
Kind of the end of our
End of the
school year,
Okay,
basically.
so I think we're okay because the state looks at the calendar year, not the school year. Should be okay then.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
All right, the next item on your agenda, 10C, is the staffing plan for 2022-2023. I won't go through the entire background, but for the current school year, it called for an employment of 275 full-time teachers and 15 part-time teachers for an overall FTE of 289.55. The proposed staffing plan for next year calls for an employment of 269 full-time teachers and 15 part-time teachers for an overall FTE of 283.35. Also, as part of this proposed plan, there will be some overloads utilized to round out the departmental training schedules. The proposed plan calls for a reduction of 6 FTEs that'll be spread throughout the district. That will be 3 FTEs at the elementary level, 1 FTE at KMS, and 2 FTEs at GHS. And 4K is not considered in the staffing level. That'll come forward next month as enrollments are a little more solid. So with that, the committee brings forward a positive recommendation to approve the staffing plan for teachers for the 2022-2023 school year and related issuance of full-time and part-time teacher contracts for the 2022-2023 school year.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
That is all from Personnel Committee.
Thank you. Moving on to 11, new business. Discussion and action for addition of new committee, Teacher and Learning Committee.
Yeah, I'm going to have Chris Ryder talk about that.
Hi, everyone. As I onboarded over the last few months and listening to the community and part of the interview process, talking with Mr. Pollock and Mr. Stousland, we thought it would be an imperative as new work and a new approach to teaching and learning has come forward to form a formalized committee to provide updates and some of the technical work that happens in teaching and learning for committee review. As I've shared with the entire staff at the K-12 level, a curriculum review process and a calendar that looks ahead for the next 6 years. So that would be information that would keep you as a board and specifically the committee abreast of work that's happening versus random updates throughout the year, so that when big approvals, for instance, one of the first areas of review that we'll be looking at is our 6-8 math curriculum and programming. As we know, that's an area that we see some gaps from a student achievement standpoint that we like to address, and we'll be going into review this summer. We're able, through the committee work, we'd be able to share updates of that progress, financial impact, long-term teacher development, and then eventually board approval for new curriculums. Just keeping the work transparent so that all of you are aware of what's going on and the working that is happening. Obviously, 4K is a big piece of teaching and learning right now as well. And that would be work that could be brought forward through the committee to see the curriculums we're looking at and how we're going to go about approaching the 4K day. Human growth and development is this area of statutory requirement that needs to be reviewed, as well as there's other statutory requirements that come up through a calendar academic year that the committee could first vet and bring positive recommendations to the overall board. So I think as Mr. Pollock and I had spoken early on, we found it the need for this committee versus an ad hoc committee when new curriculums were being approached for review.
Do we have a picture of what the board's going to, or what the committee's going to look like? Who's represented on the committee?
I think it would probably mirror the committees that we currently have in place, where we have board representation of 3 board members and myself, and then as needed, bringing in other people to speak at a committee meeting, similar to the finance committee is that, where director of buildings and grounds comes in to speak to certain aspects, or food service. If we're reviewing aspects of human growth and development, I know the policy was just reviewed. There's specific people that need to be a part of that committee per state statute. So if the need at a committee meeting, a medical advisor from the community or a district nurse or whatever that might be as that makeup, they may have input to share as around progress that's being taken or actions being taken by the committee for your approval then to move forward.
So you're looking at typically a board committee, and then you bring in people, the experts, the
Yep.
content experts?
Yep.
Okay.
So it would mirror our current structures.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Teaching and Learning Committee as presented.
Second.
Ooh, enthusiasm.
I think Amanda got that one.
A lot of people asking
He
for
he
that.
can have his first second.
Russ, you want it?
I'll take it.
All right,
Good job,
Russ got
Russ.
it. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry,
I
Mike.
was just gonna say, I love the idea of this committee and making it official versus the ad hoc, which didn't seem to meet very often. So maybe we'll have more regular meetings with a regular chair on this one.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Do we have to entertain a friendly amendment to that to remove the ad hoc committee? So we don't have two parallel committees running at the same time?
I don't think so.
Not really. It just goes away. I mean,
Yeah, it's ad hoc, so.
Okay, I just, making sure.
And I just think also, Brian, when you asked for if people want to take on different committees or new committees, we'll make sure that one's included.
Yep, very good.
And I believe policy allows for the board president to create an ad hoc committee without board approval. I believe that's policy. But for a standing committee, the whole board needs to approve.
Correct. Okay, I'll do this again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Thank you, Mr. Rager.
Thank you.
Item B, discussion and action to approve donation.
Yes, I have one donation, and I'd ask the board to approve a donation of $300 from the Grand Foundation for the high school choir cabaret program.
Very good. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the grant and thank the donor for their generosity.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Moving on to item C, discussion and action to approve high school overnight travel request.
Yeah, and this one is more a point of information. Because if you don't approve it, we have to call the kid in Georgia
come
to
home.
come home.
back, yeah.
Because they left this weekend, but we have one student competing in the national DECA competition, and the student actually traveled with the Hartford group because we only had one, and so they were able to take him along as well, which is going on. So it's more point of information.
So Hartford approved this already?
Oh yeah, yeah. And the parents too.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Uh,
Or we don't need a motion?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, you can.
Are we
if you
funding
want.
anything?
We're not funding it. It's all covered. All costs are all covered by the.
Well, then I wish that student the best of luck.
Absolutely.
Second that motion.
Very good.
I would, I'd like to thank Hartford for picking up our student, to travel along with them. It's
Absolutely.
not something that they had to do, so
Yep.
it's very generous, and I thank them for that.
Nice.
All right. The board of Education will entertain a motion to go into closed session if needed to pursuant to section 19851EF to discuss negotiations and personnel. The board may take action in closed session if necessary or appropriate to entertain a motion to reconvene into open session to take further action if necessary and appropriate, and or to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Roll call, please.
Nope. I move we go into closed session pursuant to 19.851E and 19.851F to discuss negotiations and personnel.
Second.
Roll call.
All right. Medved.
Yes.
Barney.
Yes.
Reineman, yes. Soderberg.
Yes.
Loth.
Yes?
Ewert.
Yes.
And Pollock.
Yes.
We are in closed session at 8:53.